This program is made possible by a grant from the Indianapolis Neighborhood Housing Partnership.
Hi, I'm Gary Dick. Home mortgage foreclosure is still an enormous problem in the United States, and Central Indiana has more than its fair share. The good news is there really is lots of help out there for those behind in their payments, or for those who even suspect they are about to become behind in those payments. In this program, we'll examine those resources in depth. But first, we'll meet two families who faced this crisis head on and see how they saved their homes. A terrible consequence of the Great Recession we've all lived through is the tremendous rise in home foreclosure. Those caught in the vice grip of this problem can feel overwhelmed, ashamed, and downright lost. But critically, there is help out there, and lots of it. Tonight, two stories of those who found the help that let them save their home. Keith Cleary has lived in his home for 12 years, but he almost didn't make it. In 2009, he lost his job as a mechanic.
When I lost my job, it took all of 15 weeks before there was no money. And unemployment was nothing compared to what I was making. By the end of 9 weeks, I knew we were going to be in trouble. And we started trying to figure out what we were going to do.
He called the mortgage company, but was told they would not change his required payments.
I wasn't getting enough in to make a full payment anymore, so payments started falling behind. By about 8 months, I was close to 2 payments behind. When I fell 3 payments behind, I called and I wanted to resolve it. I wanted to figure out what we could do. I thought for sure they want to help me. Help was basically dividing the 3 payments into my regular payments and spreading that over an 8-month period. So it was kind of like a stranglehold. And I did that till the unemployment ran out.
It didn't take long from there.
I got my notice for foreclosure. In that notice, I read things that come in, so I'm reading it and seeing I had 20 days to get a response to the court or they would proceed. It's as close to feeling like you have no way out, being trapped in a box, as you can get.
But Keith Cleary didn't stop looking for help, and he found it in the Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic and HUD-certified free service to help people try to avoid foreclosure.
They assigned me to a lawyer to help me. He helped me do my paperwork. He helped present everything. Basically, he became my go-between. He started talking to the mortgage company for me. We were making sure everything was done correctly through the process that needed to happen to save my home.
The key was getting the mortgage company to listen. The legal clinic knew a way to do that.
Well, in the state of Indiana, borrowers are entitled to a court-ordered settlement conference if they request it from the court within 30 days. That gives them an opportunity to meet with their lender to determine if there are any options for them to avoid foreclosure.
The end result is we got our hearing. A lawyer from the legal services, Chase, he sat down and represented me. They actually recalculated and worked on a program for me while we were on hold. So the end result was I was able to actually save my house and restructure my loan.
The thing that struck me, I think, about the Clearys is they were a prime example of a family that just would not give up. I admire them greatly for their hard work and their determination to stay in their home.
It's a fight that so many are still struggling with.
The biggest advice that I would give to them, one, stop, take a second, pray, and regroup yourself. Because when we're all wound up in emotion, we don't think clear. The second one is start looking for help.
And that's exactly what Andrea Longstreet did. Longstreet and her son Wrigley have been in their home since 2004. But when Andrea lost her job in 2009, she could see, even with unemployment benefits, there wouldn't be enough money for the mortgage.
Like a lot of Americans, I didn't have that security blanket of 6 months of expenses that they tell you to have. I didn't live paycheck to paycheck, but it was pretty close. I reached out to my mortgage company and they said, oh yeah, we're going to work with you. And so everything's going great. I'm following along and doing what they tell me to do, and unfortunately I missed that 3rd payment, and immediately I got notified that they were going to foreclose. And the next thing I found out was, I'm getting notice of a sheriff's sale. And at that point I called the Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic for help.
Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic.
Reaching out for help was perhaps the most important move Andrea made. But it was almost too late.
I got in touch with them again just in the nick of time. I think if I had even been a week later getting in touch with them, my house would have been sold. They walked me through the entire process. I was able to get everything I needed taken care of and turned in, and they stopped everything. Through the Hardest Hits Fund, they were able to make a repayment to my mortgage company to catch up what I owed on my mortgage. How high up can you get?
Soon after, Andrea found a new job and has even been promoted.
Yep.
But she's got advice for those still in the fight for their home.
Don't wait to file for unemployment, number one. And number two, don't wait to talk to the Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic until you're behind in your mortgage. Talk to them as soon as you know that it's not going to be covered. Save your home.
Save your home.
Save your home.
Two success stories right here in Indiana. Certainly the foreclosure issue is one with many arms, many wings, many questions surrounding that issue. And tonight we have with us a terrific panel to help sort through some of those issues. This is a panel individually that works with people every single day to avoid and to deal with foreclosure. We're pleased to have them tonight. Pleased to be joined by Roger Rayburn. Roger is Director of Housing Initiatives at the Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic. Chase Haller is staff attorney at the Christian Legal Clinic. Brandy King is a certified housing counselor also at the Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic. And Lisa Wolf is Deputy Attorney General in the Licensing Enforcement and Homeowner Protection Unit at the Office of Indiana Attorney General. And again, welcome one and all for being here tonight for what I think will be a great discussion. We also want to mention we have operators standing by to take your questions. I'll direct those to the guest as well. Just use the number on your screen, there it is, to call in, and let's learn how you can save your home. Well, let's begin the discussion, and I think maybe a good way to start things tonight is to get a feel for the landscape out there in terms of foreclosures. And Lisa, as you look in central Indiana and around the state, foreclosure has been a huge issue around the country and in Indiana, unfortunately, for a number of years. Is it getting any better? What do you see?
Well, Indiana obviously wasn't spared in the foreclosure crisis, and it's still a very serious problem today. What we hope for is a decrease in the number of foreclosures being filed, but what we expect is a very gradual decrease. And that still doesn't account for the number of borrowers right now who are still going through the foreclosure process. Right. One of the problems that they're having is that they don't know what to do, they don't know where to turn, and they don't know what their options are. Yeah.
Roger, what are you seeing in terms of the volume or the flow of people coming in the foreclosure situation?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I would have really thought that the numbers would have waned by now, but they're not. Central Indiana has just been devastated. And so the numbers are actually in some ways going up, and we get between 40 and 50 new families calling every single week in the Central Indiana region looking for assistance from this problem. So it's nothing that's just going away quickly.
Certainly the unemployment situation is something that is very much a part of the foreclosure process. Indiana, while we've gained a lot of jobs in a number of areas, traditional manufacturing has taken a big hit. Brandy, I know you deal with a lot of the unemployed, specifically the unemployed in the foreclosure process. Give us an idea of what you're dealing with on a regular basis.
Well, there's a program that the state has kind of facilitated called the Hardest Hit Funds that basically is put into place to help those borrowers who are unemployed and receiving unemployment to actually have their payments made for them. And the state will pay those payments up to $18,000 based on where it is that they fall behind. So if you've got a case where there's a borrower who's fallen behind a few months and then they discover that they need some help and there's somewhere to go, then there is actually a program in place to help them do that. And even for those borrowers who may have fallen behind and become reemployed, there's still hope to be caught up on their mortgage.
Jason, what's the biggest, I mean, there has to be so many emotions that go through the minds of those people in that process, whether they're in foreclosure or feel as though they're about to get into that process. What are the, couple of things that folks really need to keep in mind in terms of dealing with foreclosure?
Well, first of all, I think the most important thing is always have the attitude of you're not going to give up. If you really want to keep your home, you need to focus on making sure that you're going to keep fighting and Another thing too is, make sure if you do have income, make sure that you have a way to document that income. Lots of people have small businesses and things like that. Maybe they don't have a separate checking account, but when the bank is reviewing you for loan modification, they want to be able to verify that that income is going into a bank account.
Yeah.
So keep good records, hang on to your bank statements. Make sure you keep good records if you have a small business or something like that.
Yeah, so there are ways, obviously, a number of ways to deal with it. Have a lot of questions already coming in to our operator standing by on the phones, and we have a question from Susan, who calls tonight from Hendricks County. Susan wants to know, or her question, I'm unemployed. My mortgage company has refused to help. What can I do if the mortgage company is just not working with me?
She would definitely want to get in touch with the housing agency first and foremost. And at that point, if there's been any unemployment, which is key, then she could seek assistance through the Hardest Hit Funds program. But the main thing, again, just as Chase said, would be documentation, because it has to be documented, what the income is, what the lack of income is, even for the sake of trying to get the assistance.
Very important on the documentation. We have a call tonight from Marilyn, who is calling from Hamilton County. She has a question for the Attorney General's office. Lisa, to you. How do I know if I can benefit from the recent Attorney General settlement? I know there was a big settlement earlier in the year, Indiana taking part in that. How can folks here potentially benefit from that?
Well, yeah, that's right. 49 states, some federal regulators, and state banking agencies came to a settlement with the 5 biggest banks. That's Bank of America, GMAC, Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citi Mortgage. So borrowers who have loans serviced by one of those 5 banks may be eligible for assistance under the settlement. Those banks have agreed to do more loss mitigation. So that means more loan modifications, more short sales, more deeds in lieu of foreclosure, which is an option available for borrowers who, just unfortunately can't save their home and would like to give it up at that point. So borrowers who want assistance, have one of those banks, they need to contact their bank or work with a housing counselor to apply for assistance, because again, these banks have agreed to do more loss mitigation, and we want to see borrowers in Indiana receiving that assistance.
Yeah, but to find out, they need to contact the Attorney General's office to find out if they can be part of that, maybe part of that settlement?
Nope, any borrower who has a loan serviced by one of those 5 banks can just seek assistance. There's another part of the settlement where borrowers who have already been foreclosed on may be eligible for payments. Now those borrowers would be notified by letter from our office notifying them that they're eligible for a payment. But beyond that, borrowers who have their homes still, who are looking for assistance, need to contact their bank and seek assistance.
Very good. Joe from Morgan County, kind of a procedural question here, I guess. And Chase, this is someone who looks like the process is starting. My mortgage company says I am in foreclosure. When do I have to move? What do I do?
Well, the first thing is, don't get in your head immediately that you have to move. The foreclosure process, we like to tell people it's kind of broken up into 4 steps. So you have the initial foreclosure complaint, which is usually served to someone's home. And it'll say, you have to answer this complaint within 20 or 23 days, and then you have to request a settlement conference within 30 days. And then you have the settlement conference process. So if you do go to a settlement conference, that's your opportunity to meet face-to-face with your lender, see if there's an opportunity to obtain a modification or something like that. And then the third step is judgment. So they're either going to file for default judgment or summary judgment. And then you actually have the sale, which follows. So if she's just been served with the paperwork, there still is a good amount of time to work something out with her lender. The first thing I would recommend that she do is request a settlement conference. It's a very critical thing. It can really help somebody get a modification that otherwise wouldn't be able to get one. And then also go see a certified housing counseling agency. If you're in our network, give us a call and see if we can't get you in for an intake.
Let me add to that. I think it's very important also to add that anyone in that situation, if you move out of the home, if all of a sudden you get that foreclosure notice and you go, well, I should go ahead and move, and you move out, you forfeit a lot of your rights in the state of Indiana. And so stay put and contact us, and we can walk you through that process. But don't move out.
That's interesting. So that's something to keep in mind. Just because you receive that notification doesn't mean you should move
Well,
it.
let me add to that too,
Please.
Roger. As long as you're the owner of record too, you know you're responsible to pay taxes and insurance on the property.
Right.
As long as that property's in your name. Also, if there would be any health code violations, so if the city would come by and cite the property for having too high a grass or something like that, as long as you're the owner of record, you know, you could be on the hook for that. So
Here's a question from Gwen here in Marion County, and Lisa, I think this would be for you. I keep getting notices from a company telling me they can refinance my home. Should I trust them?
Well, it's very, very important. It's good that she's wary. It's very important to be aware of scams. There are many companies out there who just want to take your money with the promise that they'll modify your loan, they'll change your interest rate if you only pay them $500 a month or a $2,000 one-time payment. They guarantee results. Companies like that are often scams, and consumers need to be wary. Help is available for free. Borrowers who cannot afford their payment really should consider working with a nonprofit, a HUD-certified housing counselor who will help them for free. The help that any legitimate company could offer for a fee is the same help that, again, is available for free through housing counseling agencies.
Judy from Marion County as well. Lost her house. I lost my house to foreclosure. When can I purchase another home?
Oh, that's a good question. It's 37 months after losing a home to foreclosure, either bankruptcy or losing a home to foreclosure, and typically after you foreclosed on, it will lead to bankruptcy. 37 months after the bankruptcy is finalized, you are eligible for an FHA loan. And so you're not out of the game. And I think that's really a cool thing to keep in mind. What you have to do is work to make sure your credit gets cleaned up and rebuild that credit over that 3 years. And that's something that can be done.
All right. Barbara from Noblesville, and again, we're getting a lot of, I think, great questions. Why is my mortgage company sending my payments back to me? Who wants to take that? Are you all shaking your head?
I got to. Usually what happens is the mortgage company will say, you know, after I've exercised my right to accelerate the debt for your loan, I'm not going to accept anything other than the full amount that's due. So if you're behind, usually it's 90 days, 3 payments or so, they may exercise their rights to accelerate that debt, and after that time they're going to say you have to pay the full 3 months payments plus late fees and everything else to bring the loan current.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's seen as a partial payment.
I got you. Yeah. Okay. Anna from Sheridan. Can I rent my house in order to make payments?
That gets kind of dicey. The answer on that one is most of our mortgages that we have on our home are for single-family dwellings. It's not investment property. If you're going to want to rent your home, if you're going to want to rent a home and purchase it to do that, the lender is going to say, okay, you would have needed to put a larger amount down. Typically, the interest rate is going to be higher. You'll need to look at your mortgage. We'd be glad to take a look at that, but really be careful because if your lender finds out and you're not supposed to, they can call in the home mortgage.
Josh from LaPel calls tonight and wonders, I owe more than my house is worth. Do I have any options? What should I do?
I would just say, yes, you do have options. I mean, your lender has the ability to modify your mortgage. So in most cases, they're not doing principal reduction, but we have heard of cases where they do it. We do see it occasionally where they will modify somebody's loan and bring them to, you know, closer to a current value of the home. So yeah, I mean, you still do have options.
Here's a question. As part of the services you provide, Daffy from Marion County, how can the clinic assist me to lower payments? Is that something that's part of the process?
The main thing is the income and the affordability of the home as a whole, because a lot of times what happens is if you're in a position to want to get the payment lowered, you would typically go for a refinance, which is a little bit different in the realm of foreclosure prevention, but at the same time, depending on the circumstances, it may be possible It just all depends on the income. It really all depends on the income.
Also, to add on to that, your lender does have the ability, it's up to your lender. I mean, that's the main thing. They do have the ability to perhaps stretch out that payment for 30 years or even 40 years. Do even an interest rate reduction. So you may have got that home and interest rates were 8% or 7%, and now you could take advantage of something that's 4%, 3.5%. If that lender lowers the interest rate, makes the payment out longer, and then obviously the payment's going to go down.
Good. Robert from Morgan County calls in tonight. I sent my paperwork to my bank, then I got a notice from another bank saying they were my lender. What happened? What should I do?
Well, there are a couple of possible scenarios that he could be facing. First of all, it's very common that you'll be making payments to one mortgage company, and then you'll get a notice that now you have a new mortgage company. That happens very frequently. Borrowers don't realize it, but your bank has the ability to transfer the servicing of your loan. So a new company can take over, and you have to make payments to the new company now. If you've received a notice from both the new company and your old mortgage company letting you know that you need to start making payments to this new company, and you're in the process of seeking help, you need to work with the new mortgage company. They'll be responsible for doing that modification review, for completing it and determining if you're eligible for assistance.
I think it's tough for anyone in any profession to kind of track all the changes in the financial world. Just generally speaking, do you sense that banks are getting better, worse, in terms of dealing with people in this? I mean, it's a tough business, and they're facing a lot of regulations and different things, and it's tough. And for people in this situation of foreclosure, it's especially tough. How do you sense that? The willingness of banks to work.
I think the best way to say it is that banks are in the business of making money. They don't want the house. They really don't. They want your money. Forgive me for saying it that way. I don't mean that crass. But they've made a contract with you to make those payments. Their banks, you and I, we look at short term. We try to make a little money. We have our jobs. Banks look at long-term investments, 10, 20, 30 years. So banks are actually, there's a lot of misconception that banks don't have money to lend right now. They do. They have all kinds of money to lend. It's just now the borrower needs to be credit ready before they go in and seek a loan.
If I can actually add to that, that's one of the reasons that we came to a $25 billion settlement with those 5 banks, is because we knew they were doing things wrong. They were cutting corners. Some of their foreclosure practices were just completely unacceptable. And so we want to see things change. And as part of that settlement, the 5 banks involved have agreed to change their practices. So if a consumer calls their bank and says, I want to be reviewed for a modification, and they're not able to communicate with their bank, they're not reviewed for a modification, that's something that our office wants to hear about. Because we came to this settlement because we want these banks to comply. So that's something we would like to hear about.
Good. Matt from Shelbyville, I have a fixed interest rate, so why did my payment go up?
Okay. Just quickly on that, is that it potentially could be a situation where either the taxes or the insurance has increased. That's almost always the case if they're escrowing something. That's probably what's happened there.
Okay. If I could just add to that too, I mean, if it has been a couple of years since somebody's made payments and the loan does get modified, even if they stretch you out to 30 years or even 40 years, even if they lower your interest rate, once they capitalize all that interest and fees, it may not actually bring your payment down.
We only have 30 seconds here. Sally from Danville, I don't want this house, want to buy a more affordable one. What can I do?
A couple of options really quick. One would be if your lender is willing to work with you to help you sell that house for now for what it's worth, which is what we call a short sale. That's probably the best and easiest way to move forward.
Great. Some great advice all the way around. And earlier today, I was able to sit down with the executive director of the Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic, Josh Abel, and he offered his vision on how homeowners can get some help. Josh, we're talking about an issue that has been a big issue, a critical issue around the country, and in particular here in central Indiana for some time. Your message, if you will, as we enter or begin to end 2012, to those people out there who may have lost their homes or feel as though they're in danger of losing their homes, your message to them.
The foreclosure crisis has rocked Indiana for several years, and we are by no means out of the woods yet. And so lots of people are in trouble financially and falling behind on their mortgage. And so we just want to encourage folks that if you are in trouble, there are resources out there for help. They do not have to pay for those resources, and we would encourage folks to contact us so that we can help them.
The Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic has been around since 1994, as you say, providing free services. You're a United Way agency, but do a lot more than this very important home foreclosure issue. You handle a lot of issues.
We do. We want to be lawyers for people who have nowhere else to turn for legal needs. So whether it's a domestic violence victim who has a family law problem, a refugee or an asylum seeker who needs immigration help, a taxpayer who needs help with dealing with the IRS, or someone who needs a consumer bankruptcy attorney or to deal with a landlord-tenant problem. We want to help folks who can't afford an attorney, and so we're there to come alongside them.
And very quickly, you have attorneys on staff, but access and connections to a large group of attorneys.
Right. We have 13 staff attorneys and about 200 volunteer attorneys that take cases from us every year.
All right, Josh Abel, thank you for being here, and thanks for what you do in the community as well.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. This has been a very quick 30 minutes. Thank you to a wonderful panel. You've answered some great questions with some great answers. Thanks for being here tonight. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your calls. We hope it's been an informative half hour, and we urge you, if you need answers to questions about how you can get help to save your home, visit the Neighborhood Christian Legal Clinic website. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.
This program is made possible by a grant from the Indianapolis Neighborhood Housing Partnership.